Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Delta Science Brown Bag Seminar, jointly hosted by the Science Program, Ecosystem Restoration Program, and the Surface Water Ambient Monitoring Program. My name is Garrett Lyles, and I coordinate these events for the Delta Science Program, and I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to come here, as well as those that are attending virtually via WebEx, and then all the folks that missed it for the federal and state holidays out of sync, since we have Columbus Day today. I'll be passing around a sign-in sheet, so please put down your name and your affiliation and email if you, so we can track our progress with who's coming to these events and whatnot. Keys for the bathrooms are the shiny lures over on the wall, so out the door to the left and around the corner of the bathrooms, and please remember to put them back when you're done. If there's an emergency, we will calmly proceed downstairs as a group. I guess never found out if the stairs are right out here. We'll follow Sam since he's one of the fire monitors in the building, and we'll follow Sam out the doors to the east and into Cesar Chavez Plaza. Once again, folks out on WebEx, please put your mutes on your mics, or you'll be getting an angry break into John's talk at some point from me. So, with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. John Marshack, who's the Executive Director of the California Water Quality Monitoring Council. The CWQMQ was established by legislation, kind of in a similar way to the way the Stewardship Council was through legislation in 2006, and it is housed within the State Water Resources Control Board. It has a pretty ambitious charge to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of water quality and associated ecosystem monitoring by fostering collaboration among the various entities, government-wise and otherwise, that collect water and environmental quality, associated water quality data, and then make all that data available to a very broad audience via the internet. Prior to starting with the Water Board in 2008, Dr. Marshack spent 27 years with the Central Valley Regional Water Board in programs that were designed to protect the quality of surface and groundwater resources. He holds bachelor's and master's degrees in biochemistry from UCLA and UC Davis, respectively, and he has a doctorate in environmental science and engineering from UCLA. His efforts to coordinate and collaborate haven't gone unnoticed. He also is the appointed National Water Quality Monitoring Council representative for the Pacific Southwest region, which includes Arizona, California, Hawaii, and Nevada. So with that, I think it's safe to say that the ideas and goals that John will share today represent an important shared path forward to support environmental quality monitoring and in general environmental quality in California. So with that, welcome, John.
Thank you, Garrett. Everybody here okay? Good. Okay, well, as Garrett mentioned, I'm here today to introduce you to the Monitoring Council. The Monitoring Council has been working for a number of years now. No, not working. No, seems to be working. Closer? Okay, hold on. Little logistics here. For those of you on the phone, you can hear me better now, hopefully. Is that better? Good, okay. So as Garrett mentioned, the Monitoring Council has been working for a number of years to foster collaboration among those who monitor in California. And I'm here to introduce you to the Council, its work groups, its water quality portals, and the efforts that it has been going through to increase collaboration with those monitoring water quality and aquatic ecosystems. So we have federal, state, local agencies, water bond grant recipients, regulated dischargers, spending millions of dollars each year monitoring water quality and aquatic ecosystems throughout California. Those data are only useful if they're able to be turned into information so that we can determine the status of our water resources, health and welfare issues associated with water quality and aquatic ecosystems, and the progress of our agency mandates in order to manage our water resources. Unfortunately, our water quality and aquatic ecosystem monitoring efforts statewide need some help. There are inconsistent monitoring methods and ways to assess the data. There is little coordination between various agencies that are monitoring, and there's no single place to find the data or information once they're produced. This map here shows you the 2010 impaired waters map from the State Water Board. Each of the regional water boards, there are 9 of them in the state, do their own assessment of impaired waters and then submit those to the State Water Board, and they go on to US EPA under the Clean Water Act. As you can see, this map would seem to indicate that the North Coast waters are the worst for water quality when actually they're the state's cleanest waters. But the North Coast assessed on a watershed basis, whereas all the other regions assessed on a stream reach basis. So you can't bring the data together and have something that makes sense on a statewide framework. This is the kind of problem that the Monitoring Council was created to fix. So in 2006, California Senate Bill 1070 was passed and became law. It required the formation of the California Water Quality Monitoring Council through an MOU between Cal EPA and the California Natural Resources Agency. It required that by December 2008, it would produce initial recommendations to maximize the efficiency and effectiveness of existing water quality data collection and dissemination, and then ensure available data are available to decision makers and the public via the internet. Working with those initial recommendations, 2 years of experience, the legislation called on the council to produce a comprehensive monitoring program strategy for California that was delivered to the agency secretaries in December 2010. The Monitoring Council is a very broadly based organization. It includes water resource, regulator, and public health California state agencies, as well as representatives of the regulated community, including publicly owned treatment works, stormwater interests, and irrigated agriculture. It also includes water supply interests, scientific community, and the public, also citizen monitoring groups. And surprisingly enough, with this diversity of backgrounds, the council has rarely had to vote on anything. Things normally happen by consensus. We all want to move in the same direction to fix our system of monitoring, assessment, and reporting. So the Monitoring Council's solution is a bit different than prior efforts to improve this situation. Rather than producing new grandiose databases or getting mired in, well, you got to standardize this, this, and this, the council had a different approach, not to get mired in the technical details, but focus on the delivery, the streamlined delivery of data to those who need it through a series of theme-based web portals that directly address users' questions, and then have all of those portals accessed through a single global point of entry. The portals would each be produced by a theme-specific work group comprised of issue experts from throughout state government and other organizations, and then the Monitoring Council would provide overarching guidance for the work groups. So this slide shows you what an individual work group would be involved in doing under the oversight of the Monitoring Council. As needed, they'd be developing monitoring and assessment methods and data management procedures to achieve that level of standardization necessary to bring data together to meet users' needs, not just standardization for standardization's sake. In the process, they'd be finding out where there's redundant monitoring going on, where there are data gaps, where there is inconsistent handling of water quality data and an access to such data. And in the process, actually delving in and finding out how we can coordinate our monitoring programs to make them more efficient and effective. So the comprehensive monitoring program strategy that I mentioned is on the web at this website. And the work groups, we have a total of 6 of them at present, and most of them have created initial versions of their water quality and ecosystem health portals. Those are all available through the My Water Quality website at the address shown here. So this is what the My Water Quality website looks like. As you can see, it's broken down with major questions being the focus of navigation. So is our water safe to drink? Is it safe to swim in our waters? Is it safe to eat fish and shellfish from our waters? Are our aquatic ecosystems healthy? So one or more theme-specific work groups is tasked with delving into each one of these questions and looking at more detailed questions that then can be addressed with existing data as well as monitoring programs going forward. So the first of those work groups is the Safe to Swim work group. Their portal was released in July of 2009. The initial focus, coastal beach bacteria indicators and beach closures and postings by county health agencies. We already had some coordination going on between those county health agencies already, getting them more involved with the water boards and other organizations to expand assessment of swimming safety throughout our coastal waters. We hope in the future to expand that effort to inland waters as well, perhaps including things like harmful algal blooms and their effect on swimming safety. The work group found almost immediately that one of the biggest problems was data management and access to data. You've got counties up and down the coast monitoring the bacterial indicators, and how do we get those data together in a meaningful way? How do we present them to the public in a rapid enough fashion where they can make decisions about where to swim? So the work group is involved in developing an improved data management system that will develop a new Beach Watch database for coastal data. Those data will feed automatically into the California Environmental Data Exchange Network to make those data available to many others, also to US EPA. That will eventually allow us to combine inland bacterial indicator data with the coastal data to be able to produce a statewide perspective on swimming safety. The funding for the work group activities and the portal so far have been through the State Water Resources Control Board. So here's what their portal homepage looks like. As you can see, one of the common features of the My Water Quality portals is you have some sort of graphic interface as well as a number of more detailed questions that are addressed by other pages within the portal. So again, questions are the way that you navigate through these portals. In this case, the graphic shows you a map-based interface to essentially get the same information as is outlined under the questions, but at a county level. So one of the first things presented in this portal is information about the bacterial indicator data and beach closures and warnings by the county health agencies. So if you click on a particular county, you can see who does the monitoring, and then there's a hotline to call to see which beaches are open or closed today, and then a link to the county website. And each county in the system maintains a website, and you can see through a map here which beaches are open, which ones have warnings, and which ones are closed. Also part of the work group is Heal the Bay, and their Ocean Beach report card has been integrated into the portal. Heal the Bay takes the very same data that the county health officers use for the last 30 days of monitoring and works that through an algorithm to give a letter grade to each beach up and down the coast. And those letter grades and their associating colors are posted on a map interface, so you can go and look in your area and see where you might want to take your kids swimming today and where you would want to avoid. In this case, you can see that the beach that I've highlighted here gets an F for the latest 30 days of monitoring data, but just down the coast, there's a blue dot indicating a better result, and if I click on that, that particular beach gets an A. So you can see some comparison between nearby beaches. Also, the beach report card does roll up data on a statewide basis on year by year. What if you want to look at the actual bacterial indicator data themselves? Well, here's a map, part of the portal, that shows you all of the monitoring sites up and down the coast. If I zoom into a particular area and click on one of the monitoring stations, I can see where that station is located, who's responsible for monitoring it, and then actual monitoring data over time for the various bacterial indicators, toad coliform, fecal coliform, and enterococcus in this case. Another aspect of the portal is that, and for all the portals, is if there are multiple ways of showing the information that are reasonable, they should be shown. So here's another way of looking at the very same data. In this case, we're looking at what waters are listed as impaired under the Clean Water Act for the swimming beneficial use. So all the water bodies listed in red have such impairment listings under the Clean Water Act. Many of them have total maximum daily loads that are either are being produced currently or have been approved by EPA or are in some form of implementation to get the water body back into compliance with water quality standards. So clicking on one of the water bodies on this map of the portal shows you what is the source of the water quality problem, how much of the water body is affected, is there an approved TMDL, and then by clicking you can get direct access to the TMDL report from the map. Another area of the portal looks at what are we doing to improve swimming safety. In this case, a map showing the Clean Beach Initiative grants that have been awarded for water quality improvement projects up and down the coast that would affect swimming safety. We can zoom in on a particular location shown on the map and see what is the project involved, how much money, and from what source that money is coming from in order to correct the problem, contact information, and then a direct link to progress reports about that particular grant study. The second work group under the Monitoring Council is the Bioaccumulation Oversight Group. Their portal was released in December 2009. Their initial focus and their main focus to date are threats to human consumers of sport fish. However, they are beginning to study the threats of contaminants in fish to other aquatic life and wildlife. The work group has developed its own monitoring and assessment strategy to coordinate monitoring, assessment, and reporting. They've developed the first comprehensive statewide survey of contaminants in sport fish throughout California waters, which led to the development of the first statewide advisory on eating fish from lakes and reservoirs by the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment. The work group utilizes standard methods for monitoring and QA from the Surface Water Ambient Monitoring Program. Their data are managed through the California Environmental Data Exchange Network, and funding comes from the water boards as well as US EPA through SWAMP. So here's the home page of their portal, similar to the Safe to Swim portal, where you have a map-based interface to get information on a county basis, as well as more detailed questions in the questions answered box. So one of the first things we look at are the fish consumption advisories. How many meals of what fish are safe to eat from what water body? So we have a map interface to those advisories. Any water body in purple has an advisory. We can click on it. In this case, we can see the Lower Feather River has an advisory because of mercury. If you click on the advisory link, you go right to a pictogram that shows you very readily which fish and how many servings per week are safe for consumption. Also shown are those that have sufficient omega-3 fatty acids to be heart healthy. If you're interested in the raw data itself, another map in the portal presents those data, contaminants in fish. You can look at individual species. You can look at individual contaminants. You can adjust the year range you're interested in. And then the contaminants are grouped based on contaminant ranges, usually linked back to the consumption advisories. How many meals per week are safe to eat? If I zoom in to, for example, Lake Oroville, you can click on the monitoring station and get the actual monitoring data, contaminants in sport fish, in this case mercury, between 2007 and 2008. Let's say you look at those data and you think, that looks a little high to me. Maybe I don't want to go fishing at that water body, but is there some place nearby that does a better job? Well, there's a nearby location tab at the top, and if you click on that, here you get a comparison of the nearby water bodies and their maximum mercury concentrations in sport fish. So you can make an educated choice about where to go fishing today. There's also information in the portal about the sources of these contaminants. the risks of eating contaminated fish and shellfish, and then what individuals can do to reduce their risks. The first work group of the Monitoring Council to look at ecosystem health is the California Wetland Monitoring Work Group. It's a partnership of 24 state and federal agencies and non-governmental organizations that looks at coordinating wetland monitoring and assessment throughout California. Back in 2010, California was tasked with coming up with an answer, what is the net loss of wetlands over time? And data came from a number of different agencies and organizations to try and address that question, but because there was no consistent definition of what a wetland was, you couldn't put data together from the Department of Fish and Wildlife, Department of Water Resources, the water boards, and others in any meaningful way. They couldn't answer the question. So this work group has been trying to address that issue for a number of years now. So again, under the overarching guidance of the Monitoring Council, funding comes from US EPA through grants from the water boards and also from the Coastal Impact Assistance Program. The work group has developed a number of tools and products to help coordinate monitoring and standardize such that we can bring monitoring data and assessment information together from a wide variety of organizations. First of all, they've developed a wetland and riparian area monitoring plan, a framework for monitoring, assessment, and reporting based on the level 1, 2, 3 framework of US EPA. They've developed a level 2 assessment method, monitoring and assessment method called the Rapid Assessment Protocol, or CRAM, cost-effective and defensible method for monitoring wetland condition. They offer regular training and support for those using CRAM. Also, for managing the data from CRAM, there is eCRAM, a database set up online for entering those data. Those data can be analyzed through an online tool called EcoAtlas that provides a landscape context to aquatic resource extent, condition, and project information, integrating maps, restoration information, and monitoring results. Their portal is accessed through the Ecosystem Health link on the My Water Quality homepage. As you can see, we have Ecosystem Health broken down by water body type, wetlands being the first, and here's the wetland portal homepage. The variety of wetlands in California is extensive, and that variety is expressed through a picture carousel on the homepage. You can thumb through the different kinds of wetland types on the homepage. By clicking on one of those, you get more detailed information about that particular wetland type. As you can see, we also have a number of questions that are answered by the portal. First of all, what is the extent of our wetlands in California? How healthy are they? And then how are our wetlands protected? Under each of those larger questions are more detailed questions that allow you to dive in with a lot more precision and detail. One of the maps of the portal addresses where you can find our wetlands and what kind of wetlands there are. This is a map produced by EcoAtlas. It shows through the standardized wetland classification and monitoring of the California Aquatic Resources Inventory where you find various wetland types around California. And it's an interactive map, so you can go and look in your own area and find out where the wetlands are, what their extent is, and what kind of wetlands they represent. Also, there are statistics presented on a statewide basis about wetland types throughout California. If you're interested in the condition of wetlands, another map in the portal provides CRAM data, the California Rapid Assessment data for monitoring wetland condition. The scores range from 25 to 100, and they're presented in ranges here on the map by color code. You can click on a particular monitoring station and actually find the actual CRAM scores for that station. If they were monitored multiple times, you'll see multiple entries. This page shows how wetlands are monitored under the Wetland Work Group strategy. First of all, landscape level assessment. Where are the wetlands? What's the extent of them? That's level 1 under EPA's scheme. Rapid assessment of condition is level 2. I've already mentioned CRAM fitting in there. And then more intensive site assessment, level 3. That might be, for example, looking at bioassessment of a particular species or community group within a particular wetland. Also presented on the portal are restoration projects going on in wetlands around California. This again taken from Eco Atlas, showing you who has projects in what areas, the acreage of those projects, what they're intending to do, and also what agencies are involved. And there's more detail actually on each of these projects through Eco Atlas. So how are California's wetlands being protected? This page shows you a number of different programs, regulatory, incentive, and restoration programs from a wide variety of agencies, state and federal and local throughout California. Again, the Wetland Work Group provides the coordination mechanism between all of these to have people moving in a consistent fashion, fostering collaboration. The California Healthy Streams Partnership is the next ecosystem health work group of the Monitoring Council, partnership of state and federal agencies and non-governmental organizations, again under the Council's oversight, looking at stream health throughout California. They are using surface water ambient monitoring program tools for consistent monitoring and assessment with documented monitoring and assessment standard operating procedures, all available online, quality assurance procedures and data quality documentation procedures to ensure data are of known and documented quality and therefore usable. Data are managed through the California Environmental Data Exchange Network through a collaborative effort with US EPA's Healthy Watersheds Initiative. The work group was instrumental in helping to produce the first statewide integrated multi-metric assessment of watershed health throughout California, and that's been published and is available on US EPA's website. We hope eventually to put that integrated assessment on the Healthy Streams portal. So here's the home page of their portal. They took a little bit different tack on the graphic on the home page. Again, we have main questions to look at here on the right, but in the case of the graphic, rather than showing a map, the work group thought it would be good to provide an educational tool to help people understand what factors affect stream health throughout California. So if I mouse over the diagram, certain things pop out. If you click on those, for example, urban land use, you get information about how that particular factor affects stream health. And if there are data available, there's a link here that shows how land use around California affects stream health as measured by benthic macroinvertebrate bioassessment results. As you can see, there's a summary map showing you good, degraded, and very degraded streams based on benthic macroinvertebrate bioassessment. If I click on the map, I actually go to another interactive map, in this case, that allows me to get right to the BMI data, again, graded with good, degraded, or very degraded scores. Also presented in a pie chart are statewide statistics about stream health. In addition to bioassessment data, there's also water and sediment toxicity information presented on the portal. These data, again, are from the California Environmental Data Exchange Network. And then what's being done to protect stream, river, and lake habitats. There's a page devoted to that as well, the different organizations involved. And also what you can do personally to get involved. For example, with a local stewardship organization that monitors stream health in your area. The third ecosystem health work group under the Monitoring Council is the California Estuary Monitoring Work Group. The logos here show you who the work group members are. Their initial focus is not a statewide basis. It's smaller than that. It's looking at the most important estuary on this side of the continent, the San Francisco Bay Delta estuary. So their portal is intended to be initially educational. What is an estuary? Where are they? What are the food web relationships? Looking at estuary health, conditions of major biological resources within the Bay Delta, drivers of those biological resource patterns, and then detailed data on physical, hydrologic, chemical, and meteorological factors affecting the health of the San Francisco Bay Delta estuary. So this is what they're currently working on. Their initial portal is up on the web. Initial leadership and funding has been provided by the state and federal contractors water agency, coordination through the interagency ecological program for monitoring, assessment, and reporting, data visualization through an organization called 34 North. They're responsible for another web-based system called Bay Delta Live you might be familiar with. They've provided the work group with website support and tools to help the work group bring data and information together to tell stories about the Bay Delta, and they also host the portal information. They're also looking at the potential use of EcoAtlas for tracking restoration projects throughout the Bay Delta, and that concept has been endorsed by the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta Conservancy, a member of the work group. So here's the estuary portal. Initial focus being on the San Francisco Bay Delta. There is a really nice interactive flyover on the home page, as well as other images and videos of the Bay Delta. And then major questions in the questions answer box. First of all, where are California's estuaries? What's their health? What's being done to protect them? How can I be a part of that solution? So looking first at where are California's estuaries, there's an initial map of major estuaries along the California coast. As I mentioned, the focus initially is the San Francisco Bay Delta estuary. That's the one that's built out so far. We hope eventually to have work groups for these other estuaries stepping up to populate portals as well. So looking at the San Francisco estuary health, we have a number of different factors: water quality and quantity, habitat, living resources, ecological processes, and stewardship, all important in determining the health of the Bay Delta. If I click on living resources, I get more information about that aspect. I can delve even further, looking at, for example, phytoplankton, and there's descriptive information as well as data from monitoring stations throughout the Bay Delta and monitoring results presented on phytoplankton. Also, as part of this portal effort, the Bureau of Reclamation and Department of Water Resources responsibility for monitoring and reporting on water quality conditions in the Delta as a result of Water Rights Decision 1641 is presented as part of the portal. So water quality information presented to satisfy not just getting information to the public, but also satisfying a legal requirement under the Water Rights Decision is part of the portal process. There's also an effort underway to look at the ecosystem health of our ocean and coastal ecosystems. The initial effort focused on the multi-agency Rocky Intertidal Network, or MARINE. That's a group that's looked at monitoring tide pools along California's coast, as well as Oregon, Washington, all the way up to Alaska and down to Mexico. Their data are managed through UC Santa Cruz, and they helped to develop a portal based on their data for California's tide pools in October of 2013. So here's their homepage showing the different monitoring stations throughout California and a number of questions so you can delve into various aspects about the Rocky Intertidal habitats. They present for each of their monitoring stations the methods that are used, as well as summary data about different species and their numbers over time. Also information about who protects these habitats, under what legal constraints. And there are future plans to expand this effort to a lot of other ocean and coastal ecosystems. The Ocean Science Trust has recently developed a roadmap funded by the Resource Legacy Fund Foundation that with a phased approach to develop an ocean and coastal work group focusing on a number of priority issues. Those issues identified in the roadmap so far are the relationship between monitoring in marine protected areas versus areas of special biological significance, tying together fisheries and water quality. Also looking at harmful algal blooms, ocean acidification, marine debris, and trash control as initial work group foci. So there would be a smaller work group for each of these priority issues coordinated by a larger overarching ocean ecosystem health work group. We also have a safe drinking water work group, leadership here provided by California's Division of Drinking Water. They have produced a mock-up of a new portal on drinking water quality, and that's been approved by the Monitoring Council, telling the entire story of water quality from source to tap and all the agencies and organizations' roles involved through that long train. The move of the drinking water program recently from the California Department of Public Health to the water boards has somewhat stalled development of that portal until all the underlying financial and IT aspects can get worked out. Once all that's done, then we'll start actually building that portal. We hope to have it out sometime by the end of 2015. Additional work group efforts under the Monitoring Council. First of all, there's a data management work group. So each of the theme-based work groups has similar issues of access to data between multiple agencies and programs. How do you manage those data? How do you display those in a geographic context? And how do you develop the web portals? So these common issues are being tackled by the data management work group. It meets on a regular basis to provide guidance and assistance in those areas. Also, there's the Water Quality Monitoring Collaboration Network. This organization provides a regular web-based series of seminars for agency personnel, citizen monitoring groups, and others to foster information exchange and encourage the broader use of sound methods and tools for monitoring, assessment, and reporting and data management, so all of us can use their data. So the work groups and portals of the Monitoring Council provide a number of opportunities and benefits. They deliver answers to the public, underscoring the important work of agencies involved in developing those answers, providing a framework to guide and motivate improvement in our monitoring, assessment, and reporting, revealing data gaps, lack of assessment tools, poor data integration, and other problems that hamper statewide assessment of our water quality and aquatic ecosystems, and then through this coordination effort, allowing broader assessments to be possible by bringing data together from a lot of different sources. They also can help to automate agency annual reporting. The water boards have a yearly progress report that is put out on how well the water boards are doing. Well, actually, the portals are being used as part of that effort to see what's the actual improvement in water quality, allowing decision makers, legislators, and the public understand how their dollars are being spent beyond just the bean counting of how many permits, how many inspections, but are conditions actually getting better. This could serve a number of other organizations as well, in addition to the water boards. They also can provide big picture status and trends and access to information to guide future expenditures. The collaboration process also can improve the efficiency of monitoring and assessment programs, finding out where we have redundant monitoring, and then also improve the transparency of our monitoring programs, which builds credibility for the organizations involved. So it's more than just putting data on the web. It's forming and maintaining lasting relationships between organizations through the theme-specific work groups, implementing portal designs that require and motivate the parties involved to solve issues relating to monitoring, assessment, and coordination, data integration and management, focusing directly on questions posed by management and trying to answer those, and then providing a structure that initiates dialogues, inducing broader-based thinking, enabling broader-based assessments. I thank you for your time today. Any questions?
Any questions?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more in the opportunities and benefits section. You talked about helping decision makers evaluate their expenditures. Is that something that is, I mean, you mentioned the kind of the water board's performance reports, but in other ways, is this information being used to evaluate expenditures, or is
that's
there
an eventual goal?
Okay.
Yeah, so we feel that, you know, once the portals are more fully built out, being able to see status and trends of our waters and our ecosystems, and be able to see, okay, well, I spent so much, what did it get me? We hope to be able to provide that level of detail in the future. We're not quite there yet, but the opportunity definitely exists.
If I can ask just a quick follow-up, what are the obstacles to getting to that point?
There are two main obstacles that the Monitoring Council currently faces. One is Senate Bill 1070 came with no dedicated resources. So essentially we are relying on the goodness of the parties involved to bring both their expertise and their funding to the table to make this collaborative effort happen. And we've done a tremendous amount of work with that collaborative volunteer effort. But definitely having a dedicated funding source would make it a lot easier. As you can imagine, taking people away from their day-to-day tasks to attend meetings, to bring their data together with parties from other organizations, it takes time. It takes staff time as well as resources. Being able to make data from one system available to another system, it takes money to do that, opening up dialogues between our various data management programs through web services and other tools. So it would really be nice to have a dedicated source of funding, and that's something that the Monitoring Council is advocating for. Another issue is uneven endorsement of the Monitoring Council's strategy among the various organizations that could be involved throughout state government. The water boards have pretty much bought in, state and regional water boards, and that was really pushed by the legislation itself, which required the water boards to administer the council. A number of other organizations have stepped forward. The Department of Water Resources actually have hired Chris Jones here in the front row half-time to be another staff to the Monitoring Council to help the coordination efforts and the work groups moving forward. The state and federal water contractors have come forward with funding. US EPA, through a number of their grant programs, have provided funding and support. But some organizations really haven't stepped up yet, and we need to work on that. So Chris and I will be going from agency to agency, giving them a similar briefing and encouraging them to get their staffs more involved. So we have a lot of work to do. We've just really scratched the surface.
Thank you, John. I'm curious if there has been much discussion either at the council level or among the working groups to try to look more upslope to better understand the relationship between land use activities and water quality.
There has been some. As I showed you, they're looking at the benthic macroinvertebrate bioassessment data. There's been some effort to overlay that with land use patterns upstream of those monitoring locations and actually get an inference on how land use can affect the health of our streams based on bioassessment data. I know some of the other work groups are also looking to do similar things with their data. This is one area where I think EcoAtlas can be a really valuable tool in that allows you to take monitoring data and overlay it with land use information and other data that can, give you some of those insights. The more we can bring these data and tools together, the more we can elucidate about, what our monitoring is telling us.
Hi, John. Great talk. There was a database called Domestic Source Water Assessment Program that had information online about where water was being drawn for drinking water and the quality. But then they ran into security issues, and I'm wondering if not particularly in that case, because you said that that's not going to be done until 2015. If you've run into any other issues that involve security where you're putting what is otherwise public information online.
The area we've run into it the most has been in the drinking water area. Because of security issues, we can't actually show on a map the actual source locations, whether they be surface water intakes or wells. That has been a barrier so far to being able to do a good job of presenting those data. We hope to overcome some of that in the near future. I know that with the drinking water programs move from the Department of Public Health to the water boards, some of those restrictions are being reevaluated. Are they really necessary in order to protect our water supplies? Can we be a little more open about the data and being able to present it to the public? The Safe to Drink work group is committed to trying to bring those data and others to the new portal that they'll be building in 2015. I really haven't seen that particular security issue raised with other data sources to date. But I know that some investigators are, very much protective of their data. Well, I don't want to release my data until I've analyzed it thoroughly myself and written and had published my own papers. We're hoping, again, to move to a more collaborative frame of reference where people are willing to share their data and get more out of it in a more real-time manner. So it takes time. That's definitely an issue we have to tackle.
Thank you, John. This is more of a comment and not so much of a question, but I think it's become apparent that you've laid a lot of significant groundwork in a mere 6 years since the first report to the two secretaries came out. So I just want to thank you, because without your personal energy, we wouldn't be anywhere near as close as we are now.
Thank you.
And then a second comment deals with the fact that there's a lot more work to be done, and I think you have our commitment from the Delta Science Program to help in any way we can.
Thank you. Our goal really is to integrate this collaborative mechanism into the way that our organizations do business on a day-to-day basis, rather than, well, I have my own mandates to do this monitoring and assessment, and I'll do that by myself. Rather, let's come together and share our commonalities and also be able to share our data and information more readily. This is the way we normally do things. These work groups ought to be just a part of each agency's just their day-to-day mechanism. So we hope to get there at some point. Thank you.
I think we have somebody raised their hand on WebEx. It's a new event for us. I believe Nicole.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
That was me. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My question has to do with whether or not, so I work at POW in Sacramento, and wondering about the potential, well, I guess we do our own reporting, and is it the electronic reporting that we do, is it compatible? Are we using the same type of a system? Like the water boards are receiving data from various agencies, and I apologize for the sound here. I'm at a Starbucks. Oh.
You're breaking up a little bit. I'm not catching every word you're saying. Can you
okay.
Try again without the background music?
Yeah,
yes.
Get some music on in the
background. Yeah, no,
it's,
I apologize. My question has to do with whether or not there's an integration within the state for POTWs, the reporting that we already do. So you mentioned annual reporting. That's the water boards reporting to the EPA, that is integrated, and that's something that's one of the goals. And I'm wondering if that's the same for the agencies that are reporting to the state.
We're little by little moving to bring data together from various sources. You mentioned the PHWs and their monitoring. Those data go into a different data system at the water boards than the ambient monitoring data do. So our database folks are in the process of developing a crosswalk between those two data systems at the water boards so that we can combine reporting data on ambient waters, on our receiving waters from the PHWs, as well as our surface water ambient monitoring program data. We also are linking up those data systems with the US EPA and USGS Water Quality Exchange a national effort to bring data together. I know the Drinking Water Program also has a water quality exchange sharing mechanism in place. Department of Water Resources has a grant to link their water data library to the water quality exchange. I think the more organizations that do that kind of linkage, the more all of us can get access to each other's data. Some of the challenges are documenting the quality of those data and having a source tag stay with the data as it moves through the system so we know where it came from and be able to assess, are the data of a usable quality for the answers that I'm trying to get.
I see, so the metadata, and okay, so that's...
Right.
Thank you very much. I also appreciate the efforts that you've been made. I've learned a lot through your work groups, or through your website, actually.
Terrific.
But that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
My question has to do with, well, I really appreciate the way that the portal's set up so that it's friendly to the public and the way it's organized around questions that the public would want the answers to. And then I noticed that you're also branching into the questions that some of the regulatory policy community have to address as well. Like you mentioned the 1641 requirements and the monitoring under that. Like, are we meeting this legal mandate? And then as far as kind of doing that step two, like, are ecosystems healthy? How do we monitor that? I know that right now there's the estuary monitoring work group trying to develop those indicators. And I'm wondering, you know, it's so difficult to find those standard indices for living resources. I'm wondering what kind of thinking is going on around that. Like, I mean, even we were just trying to look at expanding some indicators from the bay to the delta and, you know, trying to bring it to a high level that a policymaker could relate to, like, how are the fish doing? You know, fish index, yet it would be different species in the delta even compared to the bay. And, you know, but then there's maybe some standard methodology for creating an index.
Right. It's a difficult nut to crack. You move around the state and there are different species involved. Even if you look just at that one narrow area of the rocky intertidal habitats along the coast, the organism assemblages vary as you move up the coast. So being able to put together an index that says how healthy our tide pools are is a difficult thing to do on a statewide basis. But each of these work groups is working toward that goal from a number of different perspectives. I know the Healthy Streams Partnership is looking at integrating a number of different indicators, whether it be toxicity data, benthic macroinvertebrate data, chemistry, water chemistry data, physical habitat, to try and develop actually a scorecard that will show you not only an overall score for that, but each of the component scores within. The California Rapid Assessment Method, CRAM, is an assemblage of more narrowly focused questions that then have an overall score that's presented as well, but you can get into the individual components such as, you know, physical habitat and buffer zones and, you know, other things like that. So each of the work groups is grappling with that. I think there probably is no one best way to do it, but if we can bring enough people together to agree on a particular method, I think the information will wind up being useful.
Anyone else?
Well, it was very informative, and I like the fact that it provides a nice resource, not just for us, but for people, hopefully, that will find this presentation and your talk in the future. So
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we hope eventually that these portals will serve multiple audiences. They initially focus on the public, but also, you know, legislators, key agency decision makers, scientists actually, you know, doing the work would be able to get to each other's data. Thank you.